In 1672, in the bustling city of Moscow, a child was born who would forever reshape the future of Russia and drag it, often violently, into the modern era. This child was Pyotr Alexeyevich Romanov, better known to history as Peter the Great. Born into the royal family as the son of Tsar Alexis and his second wife, Natalia Narishkina, Peter entered a world of political intrigue and instability. His early years were marked by turmoil, as rival factions vied for influence following the death of his father. When his half-brother Feofor III died in 1682, a succession crisis erupted. Peter, only 10 years old, was proclaimed Tsar alongside his half-brother Ivan V, with their sister, the powerful and cunning Sofia Alexeyevna, serving as regent. Though Peter held the title of Tsar, he spent much of his childhood away from the Kremlin, observing court politics from the sidelines and developing a fascination with military matters, craftsmanship, and foreign technology. In a secluded village near Moscow called Preobrazhenskoye, he created mock armies from his companions and trained them in Western-style drills, unknowingly forming the nucleus of what would become the elite Preobrazhensky regiment. These childhood war games reflected Peter's deepening obsession with reforming the antiquated Russian military and bureaucracy. As he matured, Peter grew restless under Sofia's regency. At 17, he seized power in a bloodless coup, forcing her into a convent and taking full control of the throne, though still nominally co-ruling with the infirm Ivan V. With his ambition unleashed, Peter began a personal and national transformation unlike anything Russia had ever seen. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, towering over others physically as well as intellectually. With boundless energy, curiosity, and a ruthless streak, he embarked on his grand embassy, an 18-month journey across Europe in disguise, to learn firsthand the secrets of shipbuilding, navigation, fortification, and governance from the West. He worked in Dutch and English shipyards, met rulers and scientists, and absorbed knowledge with an insatiable hunger. But the embassy was cut short when news of a rebellion by the Streltsy, a conservative military corps, reached him. Peter returned to Russia with a vengeance, brutally suppressing the revolt and using it as a pretext to reform and modernize every aspect of Russian life. He demanded Western clothing, shaved off nobles' beards, and imposed new taxes to enforce his vision of Europeanization. These reforms often met with fierce resistance, but Peter's will was unrelenting. He reorganized the Russian army into a disciplined, modern fighting force and built a powerful navy from scratch, understanding that Russia's future depended on access to warm water ports. His greatest military ambition led to the Great Northern War against Sweden, ruled by the brilliant King Charles XII. The war, which lasted from 1700 to 1721, saw initial humiliations for Russia, including a crushing defeat at Narva. But Peter was not easily deterred. He rebuilt his army, instituted conscription, and introduced new weaponry and tactics. The tide turned at the decisive Battle of Poltava in 1709, where Peter's forces crushed the Swedish army and announced Russia's emergence as a European great power. This victory allowed Peter to realize his dream of a Russian window to the west, with the founding of Saint Petersburg in 1703. Built on marshy land at enormous human cost, the new capital was a physical manifestation of Peter's desire to reorient Russia toward Europe. He moved the court there, designed it with Western architecture, and made it a symbol of imperial grandeur. As Tsar, Peter continued to centralize power, reduce the influence of the old boyar nobility, and place governance into the hands of a merit-based bureaucracy. He created new colleges, ministries, established the table of ranks to reward service over lineage, and introduced a new civil calendar. Education, science, and secular institutions flourished under his rule, though often forcibly. Peter's reforms were brutal in their implementation. He demanded absolute obedience, and those who resisted were tortured, exiled, or executed. His personal life was equally intense. He married twice, first to Eudoxia Lopakina, whom he later forced into a convent, and then to his beloved second wife, Catherine, a Lithuanian servant of humble origin who rose to become empress. Their relationship was passionate and complex. Catherine accompanied Peter on military campaigns and political intrigues, and in 1724, he crowned her co-ruler in a grand ceremony, solidifying her status and ensuring continuity. Yet Peter's family life was also scarred by tragedy. His eldest son, Alexei, from his first marriage, opposed many of his reforms and sought refuge with reactionary nobles and even foreign powers. When Peter uncovered this conspiracy, he had Alexei arrested, tortured, and condemned to death. Though the sentence was never officially carried out, Alexei died under mysterious circumstances in 1718, likely from injuries sustained during torture. This personal loss tormented Peter but also served as a chilling message to any who opposed him, even within his own bloodline. In the final years of his reign, Peter continued to refine and enforce his vision of a modern Russia. He issued sweeping legal codes, restructured church authority by abolishing the Patriarchate and replacing it with a state-controlled Holy Synod, and maintained a vast intelligence and enforcement network. But the relentless pace of his reforms took a toll on his health. In 1725, after helping rescue stranded sailors in icy waters, he fell gravely ill. Despite the efforts of his physicians and the prayers of the court, Peter died on February 8, 1725, leaving behind a transformed empire and an uncertain succession. He had not named a clear heir, a decision that plunged Russia into a period of dynastic struggle. Yet Peter's legacy was indelible. He had dragged a backward, insular Russia into the light of European modernity, creating a centralized autocracy, a professional army and navy, and a culture that fused Russian tradition with Western innovation. His reign marked the birth of the Russian Empire, and he was declared emperor and father of the fatherland by the Senate before his death. Though controversial, autocratic, and often cruel, Peter the Great remains one of history's most transformative rulers, a man whose towering ambition reshaped a nation and whose spirit still looms large over the vast expanse of Russia. His reign forever altered the course of Russian and European history, making him not just a czar, but a titan of civilization.